Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee, powered by Flurry Sports. It can be tough to win a fantasy league on your own, but at FFBC, we will work together to bring home the hardware. Hosted by Zach Bruner and the rest of the Flurry Sports crew, we will give top-level analysis, answer your questions, and, well, go off on other tangents.
That was after I tried to get ChatGPT to admit that 9/11 was an inside job, but it stood firm. It gave quite a few solid points that it was true.
Welcome to Fantasy Football by Committee. The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hello. Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee. Happy Tuesday. Happy week 3 of the NFL and fantasy football season. And obviously injuries are stacking up, highlighted by Nick Chubb during the 2 Monday Night Football games last night. Injuries are fucking insane right now. And we said last week it was not going to end there with the reduced practice time, with the reduced playing in preseason games, everything like that. These first few weeks, there's going to be so many injuries. So even though this looks like the most injuries we will see, trust me, and obviously injuries are a part of football. I'm not talking about that, but there's going to be an increased injury rate continuing into next week. So the best way to be prepared is to do your due diligence right now. On the fantasy football waiver wire, there's a lot of people that need to be replaced, especially at the running back position of all positions. There's so many injuries that the NFL is filing a grievance against the NFLPA for encouraging running backs, especially, to exaggerate injuries, fake injuries, stuff like that. Is there any truth to that? Who the hell knows? But there is truth to a lot of running backs being hurt, a lot of running backs missing next week's games and beyond. Obviously, there was no exaggerating or faking that injury with Nick Chubb last night, though. That one was tough to watch and truthfully could be career threatening. Truthfully, it looks like it's a multi-ligament thing. So I hope the best for him. He is one of the good guys in the NFL, right? There's plenty of them. Unfortunately, we don't hear about them enough. But I will say right now, Nick Chubb is one of the good guys. He is one of the best football players on top of that I've ever seen. Just at the running back position, such a true, pure running talent. So today we will be talking about the players that you can pick up to help mitigate the loss of Nick Chubb and all of these other players. We will go position by position. If you don't want to listen to me talk, I definitely get it. But there's an article on flurrysports.org talking about the best waiver wire pickups of the week, written by Hunter, just published a few minutes ago. I'll walk you through his article, but I'm going to be giving waiver wire pickup suggestions of my own. All of the percentages that I use will be ESPN Fantasy. That's not my preferred fantasy platform, trust me. But, stats show that is the most popular fantasy platform still. So I will be doing that. For the article, Hunter was restricted to choosing players owned in less than half of leagues. So what he did, and I'll just cruise through these, but then we'll go position by position and talk through all of the positions, all of the people. And if you are watching live or if you're watching after the fact, definitely ask any questions you have. Of course, the best place to ask questions this fantasy football season is the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group. Just type in Fantasy Football by Committee on Facebook. Join the group. You can ask questions there to myself, any of the hosts that you see on the podcast, and any of the people in the rest of the community. You can ask and answer questions with people from the community. It's a great place there. We're all winning by being over there. Last plug, definitely subscribe wherever you are watching or listening to this. If you're watching, just know this is an audio podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Audible, all of the above. Fantasy Football by Committee. Definitely go subscribe there so you don't miss a show, and leave a 5-star review as well, please. If you're listening at one of those places, just know that the videos are also up in the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group. Flurry Sports YouTube channel, all kinds of places. So lots of places for you to get your fantasy goodness. But with the waiver wire article written by Hunter on Flurry Sports, quickly, he gave 2 suggestions for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight ends. Remember, he's restricted to less than 50% ownership in ESPN leagues. His 2 quarterbacks were Jordan Love and Sam Howell. Running backs were Jerome Ford and Zach Moss. Wide receivers, Tutu Atwell and Josh Reynolds. And tight ends were Zach Ertz and Sam Laporta. Yes, those 2 are somehow still owned in less than 50% of ESPN leagues, despite me talking about them now. This will be the 3rd week in a row. But let's start with quarterbacks here. And obviously, tough to find quarterbacks that are owned in fewer than 50% of leagues. It's tough to find quarterbacks that you can trust. And it's just a position that doesn't get hurt too much. However, with Anthony Richardson going down, you certainly had a start-worthy quarterback there that it is looking like he will no longer be in your lineup, at least for this week, dealing with a concussion, and obviously he is putting his body on the line, taking a lot of hits. So when he comes back, is he going to be the same reckless sort of runner? We shall see. However, I'm not going to restrict myself to 50% here, by the way. Hunter already did the Lord's work. We will just talk about players that could be owned out there that you should look at. And the first one that I'm just going down the list right now and looking at it for the first time myself. But the quarterback that stands out is Matthew Stafford. I mean, Matthew Stafford is owned in 29.5% of leagues. He plays on Monday Night Football in Cincinnati this week. So whether you think Cincinnati's defense isn't great, or if you think Cincinnati's going to bounce back in a big way, I think the Rams are going to have to pass. I don't think they're going to run all over the Bengals. Even if Joe Burrow's out, I think Matthew Stafford's going to have a pretty good game on Monday Night Football. Past 2 weeks, he hasn't had the greatest stats, but that's mostly because he's thrown for 1 total touchdown. Like, he sliced and diced the Seahawks. Like, if you give him 1 or 2 touchdowns, that's a fantastic fantasy week. 49ers, he did pretty well. He still passed for over 300 yards. So playing Cincinnati this week, I think some positive regression. I hate that term. Let's just call it progression. I think he's going to, he's due for more touchdowns. 1 touchdown in 2 weeks is just not right, especially for a quarterback who's passed for over 600 yards. So look for Matthew Stafford to bounce back. I like him for fantasy this week. Owned in 29.5% of ESPN leagues. Go grab him. And Ralph has a question on Twitch. Again, anyone watching live, anyone watching after the fact, ask your questions. He needs some help. He has, here, I'll put this up for people watching the video after the fact. I have Etienne, Madison, Kyren Williams, and Gabe Davis. Who should I start at running back and flex? I'm going to separate mental and gut call right now, because my gut call says Madison's going to have a big week after the extended time off, after getting crucified, after getting racist comments, terrible fucking messages in his DMs. Like, it feels like the Vikings are going to make it a point to shut up those stupid, ignorant people. However, I kind of need to see it before it happens, before I put him in my fantasy lineup. So I'm ruling him out. Gabe Davis, unpredictable, rule him out. I'm going Etienne and Kyren Williams. I understand the Rams running backs can be sort of a fiasco. They will take a hot hand approach. But last week, I mean, they didn't even give anyone else the opportunity to get a hot hand. And I'm a Kyren Williams believer. Obviously, people have been following know that. So I'm happy he's getting an opportunity. So I'm going Etienne, Kyren Williams. And let's hope Kyren Williams somehow gets that same type of workload. If he does, he's going to be good. I can tell you that. So yeah, those 2. Other quarterbacks here. Hunter mentioned Jordan Love. He plays New Orleans this week. Obviously, it's hard to separate the player from the fantasy, right? Because Jordan Love has been playing bad. I don't care what Packers analysts, fans, quote unquote owners you talk to. I understand they all think he's great. I understand they look at Pro Football Focus grades. They look at quarterback ranking. They're like, oh my God. Like, one of his touchdown passes last week was essentially a handoff. It wasn't a throw. It's been a 50-50. If it's a pass that is expected to go more than 7 yards downfield, it's essentially a 50-50 call if he makes the pass or not. Like, he has not been very good. So playing a Saints defense that I think is good, I understand it's a home opener for the Packers. Maybe that is extra pressure on Love. I'm not interested in Jordan Love this week. I'm really not. So I'm not going there. I would be far more interested in Jared Goff at 52%, especially with David Montgomery not in the lineup. They may pass a bit more. So I like him. Other lesser owned guys, Derek Carr is going to be fucking tough this entire season. And it goes back to what we talked about in the preseason. Like, Taysom Hill's going to steal time. He's going to steal snaps. He's going to steal meaningful snaps in the red zone, and it's going to be unpredictable. So I don't like him. I think Jimmy Garoppolo's in a bounce back spot against Pittsburgh. I like Mac Jones, not as much this week. Oh, go Baker Mayfield, dude. Owned in 10.5% of leagues. Baker Mayfield has been good. He's been very good. We can doubt him. I don't care. You can doubt him. I'm not going to. I think Baker Mayfield's been very good. And we said again in the preseason, if you've been a fan of the show, you already know, and you might be part of that 10.5% who own him. Like, he's got good weapons. Just get the ball in their hands, and he's doing that. Him and Mike Evans are on a tear right now. Playing the Eagles, I mean, all that offensive line has to do is protect that interior pressure. Big ask, but I think they can do it. So I like him at 10.5% ownership. I like him. And then other guys that are down there, I mean, Sam Howell, I think, is fine. CJ Stroud, I think, is okay this week against Jacksonville. Yeah, that's about it. Interesting stuff there. George has a question, though. So do I just blow all my fab for Ford? No. Trust me on this one. The thing is, I'm not a Jerome Ford believer. So I'm coming into this from that point of view. And they gave him a big workload in week 1. That's what I'm going back to in terms of why he should have a big role. Last week is just, who's the active guy, and they gave him all the snaps. I don't think he's that good. I really don't. So don't blow all your fab. Obviously, he is the number one waiver wire pickup according to everybody this week, and people are going to overpay for him because the running back position is a wasteland at the current moment. I would rather have Zach Moss. And I understand Zach Moss has a time bomb, right? Has a timer on him because Jonathan Taylor allegedly will be coming back at some point. But I would rather have Zach Moss than him. I'm not convinced Pierre Strong doesn't take a big workload in this offense if the Browns stay put with the players they have. I think Pierre Strong is a better player than Jerome Ford is. And they might sign Kareem Hunt, who already knows the offense. They might sign Leonard Fournette. They might sign Darrell Henderson. They might sign insert another running. They might trade for Cam Akers. I don't think he would go there. I don't think they want him there, but it's possible. So there's a lot of players who could be added to the Browns that are all better than Jerome Ford. I'm not doing it. I'm not going crazy with him. This screams overpay and then getting burnt immediately to me. He's not I don't know. I don't buy it, but certainly going to be talked up by absolutely everybody this week. So I would pay for him. I would put some money out, but don't blow all your fab. You will regret it. I promise you that. I promise you. It's kind of like what I was telling with Luke last week. He's in a guillotine league, so worst team gets cut from the league, and all their players go on waivers. And he asked, like, should I blow all my money on Jamar Chase? It's like, don't do it. Do not do it. You need that money going forward. I promise you there's going to be better options. It's enticing. It's week 3. Be patient. I promise. Let's go to running backs, though, with that. So essentially, I mean, there's so many injuries this week, man. I mean, there's Nick Chubb done for season. There's Saquon Barkley out for a few weeks. There's David Montgomery out for at least a week. Austin Eckler should be out for another week. It seems like Aaron Jones could be out for another week. It seems like Josh Jacobs doesn't know how to run forward. There's a lot of issues with the running back position in fantasy football right now. And it kills me that these zero RB strategists are taking a victory lap because it's not a good strategy. I don't care that it's playing out perfectly for them. It's not a good strategy. I know it's not. But they're taking a victory lap, so we should let them celebrate right now. However, let's talk about running backs that you can pick up to replace Nick Chubb for the season, to put in your starting lineup for this week when there's a lot of issues to be had. And let me just start with, I'm not taking anybody from the Giants. There might be some people to hype up Matt Breida. There might be people wanting Gray. I don't know. I'm not taking any of them. It's a short week in San Francisco anyways. So we're ignoring the Giants situation altogether, despite a massive hole with Saquon Barkley gone. Fernando asks, League Mate just lost Nick Chubb. Should I trade him, Stevenson, and Pitts for Mark Andrews? That's a lot for Mark Andrews. I'm not a Mark Andrews guy. You can get more. You can get more. They are grieving. They're grieving right now. Stevenson, I mean, it's tough to trade away a running back who's going to get a massive workload and we know is talented and is healthy right now. It's tough to do so. So if someone's offering it to you in a trade, you have to feel pretty damn good. Like, you should be able to get Stevenson for Mark Andrews straight up. I understand you don't want that because you have Pitts as well. But you can get more than that. You can get more than that. Mark Andrews also not as massive. He doesn't have as massive of a target share this year, given the offense, given the additional offensive weapons around him. So Mark Andrews isn't like a 1B to Travis Kelce. He's not like a league winner. He's not the positional competitive advantage that he may have been a couple of years ago. He's no longer that. He's not even tight end 2, in my opinion. I think I ranked him season long before the season started. I think I ranked him tight end 4 or 5, and I still believe that. Not that I like Pitts. Certainly don't like Kyle Pitts, but Mark Andrews isn't the person I'm going after and feeling like, oh, won the league. Don't be trading away Ramondre Stevenson right now unless you get an obvious, massive advantage and improvement. I also would like to know the other 2 running backs that you have, because, boy, if you're trading away Stevenson, you better be stacked. You better have Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, something like that. But let's look at these running backs again, ESPN Fantasy Leagues. How are we going to replace Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, and company? Obviously, if you are an Austin Eckler owner, I hope you already own Josh Kelly. He didn't do that great last week playing against a tough Tennessee front, but he still had 13 carries. So he is currently owned in 69% of ESPN leagues. Certainly look that way if you're an Austin Eckler owner. If not, I'm not really looking for him. Kyren Williams, though. Kyren Williams is a guy I've been very high on ever since he was drafted to the Rams. Disappointing last year, but now getting a chance with Cam Akers, not with the team, possibly getting traded against San Francisco. I mean, by all accounts, a good defense. 14 carries, 52 yards, and then he got 6 catches for 48 yards, a touchdown through the air and on the ground. Massive week for him. But most importantly, man, 29 carries over the past 2 weeks. Now going against Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Philadelphia. There's going to be some tough games in there. Like, the Indianapolis and Philadelphia fronts are good. I mean, Cincinnati's front isn't bad whatsoever either. What's encouraging is that, I mean, Kyren Williams won the college award for most versatile running back, or whatever the award is, dual threat player, all-purpose player, something like that. He won that. He can do it. The 6 receptions last week isn't a fluke. So in the games that the Rams are losing, in the games that the Rams can't run the football, he should be the guy to benefit. And he's benefiting by getting the early down carries now too. So if you're If he's out there, like he's for sure, and the ad over Jerome Ford, there's no question. There's no question. He's the guy that you need to go get. Fernando says he has Brian Robinson, Mostert, Javonte Williams. Yeah, do not trade away Ramondre Stevenson with those three. Mostert, I would trade away Mostert. I'm sell on a high right now. You can't get Mark Andrews for him, obviously. But see if you can package Mostert and Pitts for Mark Andrews. I don't think that's unfair. I truly don't. See if you can do that. Because Mostert, man, like he will have more big weeks this year. I don't know if you're going to predict him. And I'm not going to try to, it's kind of my job to try to predict him, but it's going to be difficult to predict. And with Jeff Wilson coming back eventually, like he's going to get the carries too. So yeah, trade away Mostert if you can. Other running backs, by the way, Kyren Williams owned in less than 61% of ESPN fantasy leagues. So definitely go scoop him up. Go see if he is available. Ezekiel Elliott owned in the same amount, the same number of fantasy leagues. He's not a guy you need to go get, but especially if you're a worried Ramondre Stevenson owner, like I think Zeke's going to have a role going forward. Kenneth Gainwell is only rostered in 56% of leagues. Kenneth Gainwell, he was the RB1 week 1, week 2, he didn't play. Week 3, what's going to happen? I think it's a game Philadelphia passes much easier than they run. They play Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay front seven is legit. So I think Kenneth Gainwell could struggle this week. That's why maybe you don't necessarily need to scoop him up. There might be more people dropping him next week, but he is a guy who should be owned. He should be owned. Philadelphia likes him a lot, and he's got great vision. He's got better vision than DeAndre Swift. He's a good player. Other running backs. Jaylen Warren, I think, is a fine flex if you are desperate. He's owned in 40% of leagues. He's a fine flex. He has an every week role, obviously. Okay, next page. This is where it gets better. 3 names I like better than most of the players I've mentioned. Zach Moss, Gus Edwards, Roschon Johnson. Zach Moss, obviously the leader in the backfield right now, and he's going to be getting more of those goal line touches going forward, I would assume, whether Anthony Richardson is healthy or not. Next week, it looks like he's going to miss. But as soon as Richardson comes back, like the Colts may say, hey, you need to chill a little bit. You can't be putting your head on the line every single play, especially when you're playing meaningless football. Like the Colts aren't going to do shit this year. We can lose games. It's okay, Richardson. Just don't get killed. That's what happened to our last franchise quarterback. Don't be Andrew Luck. So I like Zach Moss quite a bit. Got 18 carries last week, 88 yards. He has the Ravens, Rams, and Titans the next 3 weeks. Not the easiest matchups, certainly, for running, but all he has to do is fall into the end zone. I think he can certainly do that. Gus Edwards, all he does is run for 5 yards per carry. The dude is an absolute stud. I love him very much. And I think his stat line last week, we will see many stat lines like that going forward. 10 carries, 62 yards, 1 touchdown. There's going to be so many games where he runs between 50 and 70 yards with a touchdown. Gus Edwards is not flashy. Gus Edwards is not going to make highlight reels. Gus Edwards is not going to have the massive fantasy output that wins you a week on his own that you can brag to people. But if he is your flex going forward, I think you can feel pretty damn good about it. I think he's going to be very solid going forward. So he's a guy I like. And Roschon Johnson, again, last week, not a great game. Not a great game. 4 carries, 32 yards, 2 receptions, 10 yards. He's clearly the most talented running back in that backfield. Eventually, the Bears are going to let Justin Fields run the football. They did this exact same thing last year. They tried to make him a pocket quarterback. He's playing a game that he doesn't feel comfortable in. On top of that, the team just looks really bad. And then they let Justin Fields run. And then the Bears started to look actually kind of good last year. Good is a relative term. Good according, relative to regular Chicago Bears offense. The same will happen eventually this year. I think the running back will benefit in that backfield. And at that point, hopefully it's the rookie Roschon Johnson. It's not going to be Deontay Foreman. He's already gone ahead of him. Khalil Herbert's the one ahead of him at the running back one right now. But I think it's only a matter of time. So Roschon Johnson's a guy I think you can pick up and stash. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable enough putting him as a flex yet. But if you're in a desperate situation in a 16 team league or something, I think Roschon Johnson could be a guy you could go to. Owned in only 30% of leagues. Zach Moss 32, Gus Edwards 32. Go get those guys. And then Jerome Ford. I mean, hey, owned in 9.5% of leagues. People are going to overpay for him. If you are in a league that goes by fab, relax. I just think be a little bit hesitant. I understand you're playing with fire here. 2 weeks in a row, he's got a massive workload, 15 carries first week, 16 carries last week. Without that huge run, though, like he wasn't that great. I just don't think he's that good of a player. He plays Tennessee next week. I think the Browns' running attack is going to be shut down as a whole. I think he'll have to do more damage as a receiver next week, which he's capable of doing, which he's better at doing than he is at running. So I'm pumping the brakes on Jerome Ford. I wouldn't go there. I would much rather bid 2% of my budget for Kareem Hunt than 50+% of my budget for Jerome Ford, if that makes sense. That's where my head's at. Not that I think Kareem Hunt is going to for sure go to Cleveland, but I think he for sure goes somewhere at some point, especially with bye week starting to come soon. By the way, Jerome Ford and the Browns have a week 5 bye. So he is going to be on your bench getting a 0 1 week pretty soon. Like I said, next week he plays Tennessee. I don't love him in that matchup. Week after that, he plays Baltimore. Kind of iffy. And then week 5 bye. That week 5 bye could be when they sign Kareem Hunt, get him up to speed, get him up to game shape and stuff like that. Once teams start to enter that bye week, they're not very healthy. We'll see the Leonard Fournettes, the Kareem Hunts, and players like that get signed. So if you have a roster spot, Kareem Hunt is owned in 6% of leagues right now. Check him out. Trust me. And by the way, this is a risky one too. But you guys know how I love Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson hasn't played yet, battling a leg injury. He should play next week. I thought he was very close to playing this week. Thought he actually would play this week. But next week he plays Detroit. Cordero Patterson owned in 7% of leagues. Remember that Atlanta Falcons depth chart, he's listed as the Joker in the Joker role. We will see him in the backfield. We will see him split out. And if you're in a league that counts kick return yardage, he should be returning kicks as well. One of the best returners in NFL history. 7% owned. I mean, Cordero Patterson's going to score touchdowns. He should be a red zone Swiss Army knife monster. Like he should be a mismatch monster down there. So there's a multi-touchdown Cordero Patterson game coming, and it could be this week at Detroit. That's not a bet. That's not a bad bet. Start betting the multi-touchdown Cordero Patterson line until it hits, because it's going to happen. It always does. Any other running backs? Zonovan Knight was upgraded in Detroit. Obviously, David Montgomery is going to miss this week. And some people are assuming, Jameer Gibbs is going to see 20 touches. That's not going to happen. Like, someone's going to get upgraded there. Zonovan Knight could be the guy. I would probably put my money on, who's the guy from Kutztown? Craig Reynolds? Is that the name? That sounds right to me. I can't find him. He's unowned. Craig Reynolds is probably the guy there. He's probably the short yardage runner. He's probably going to score a touchdown this week. Again, you have to be desperate. But he's probably the guy who takes on the majority of David Montgomery's snaps and carries. Unfortunately, I'm a Jameer Gibbs owner as well. I don't love it. There he is, Craig Reynolds, owned in 0.6% of fantasy leagues. I think he's worth a look. Okay. No other questions yet. By the way, anyone watching live, ask questions whenever you got them. We're going to go into wide receivers here. Again, ESPN Fantasy is what I'm looking at right now, looking at what players are available. Puka owned in 73% of leagues. I can't imagine you can pick him up at this point. For how much we talked about him last week, I hope you can't pick him up because he should be owned in your league already if you listen to us. So, but give it a look. Give it a look, especially if you're in a home league with, people who don't keep up on the day-to-day of the NFL. See if he's available. Nico Collins is owned in only 62% of leagues. He's been great. He's been really, really good. 20 total targets so far, 13 receptions, over 200 yards. Got a touchdown last week, plays Jacksonville this week. Certainly a matchup he can win there as well. He's been great. I think you can trust to pick him up and play him as a wide receiver 3. He's probably more of a wide receiver 4, but if you're desperate, man, I think you can play him as a wide receiver 3. Looking at other players here, wide receivers weird this week. There isn't very many people I trust that are unowned. I think Adam Thielen's role in week 2 is more indicative of what we will see than what we saw in week 1. Week 1, 2 catches, 12 yards, 2 targets. Last night, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 54 yards, and a touchdown. He feels like a 5-catch between 30 and 60 yards and a touchdown every 3 games kind of guy. You know what I mean? He is going to be used. He needs to be used much more, especially in such an inexperienced, poor offense. So I think you can trust Adam Thielen, again, as that wide receiver 4 if you're desperate, something like that. Ralph asked, do you think Ayuk is a season winner, or should I start to trade him while his value is still a bit high? I don't know if you can trade him now, though. He just suffered what to me looked like an AC joint sprain, I believe, in his shoulder. And if that's the case, I think he'll probably play through it, but I don't trust him. I think he's going to really struggle to extend over the next 2-3 weeks. So if you can trade him right now, I think I would, but that injury tag, I think, is going to drive down his value. And I think his production over the next few weeks is going to suck. However, if you stick with him and he sucks for a couple of weeks, don't just cut ties. Don't sell him for pennies on the dollar. I think he'll get better. But I'm a little worried over the next month or so. The Joker asks, who do I drop for Jerome Ford? Jerome Ford hype is high here, apparently. Full PPR, Khalil Herbert, Tyler Algier, Alexander Madison, or none. Also have Chig Okonkwo, obviously, tight end. But I'm dropping him for Kirk Cousins since I have Fields. Boy. I would, if you are convinced you need Jerome Ford, then I would drop Chig for Jerome Ford and not pick up Kirk Cousins. However, I mean, I don't, who the Vikings play this week and who the Bears play this week. Those are the 2 questions. Oh, fucking stupid ass ESPN. Okay. We have Justin Fields playing Kansas City. I don't mind it. And we have Kirk Cousins playing the Chargers, who we know they're going to give up those big plays. So, yeah, if you feel like you need Jerome Ford, I would stick with Justin Fields for this week. I think you're fine. And by the way, Justin Fields is such a good buy low candidate. It's insane. They're going to change their offensive scheme much like they did last year. Why did they go back to what they started at last year? I don't know, because they're a fucking horrendous coaching staff. But Justin Fields will start running probably in week 5 or 6 or something. And then he'll be good. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback too. I think that's fine. But yeah, your running backs aren't great, I suppose. Herbert, Algier, Madison. Hopefully those are just the players you would drop and you have better players ahead of those guys. If so, then certainly you don't need Jerome Ford. But yeah, let me know. Jump in the chat, let me know. Matt has a question on Twitch. So I run my sister's league for her. She lost Chubb and is left with Zach Moss, Dalvin Cook, and Mixon. I have Justin Jefferson, Adams, and Evans for trade. Stroud could be a watch. Okay, so running back situation, lost Nick Chubb. You have Zach Moss, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, and I think you're fine with that. I think you're good because I think you can start Moss and Mixon with relative confidence going this week. But yeah, having Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, and Mike Evans, I would be trading Mike Evans. There's nobody's stock as a wide receiver who's higher than his, other than maybe Puka Nacua at this current moment. But in terms of like Devontae Adams is very high, right? But he's not going to regress. Justin Jefferson's value is high, but he's not going to regress. Mike Evans. Everyone undervalues Mike Evans. Right now, I don't know. I think going into the season, 100%. It's all league by league, I suppose. But yeah, I guess if they're all undervaluing Mike Evans, it sucks. Because his stock is certainly inflated across other fantasy leagues. I would try it. Maybe there's other people who lost running backs this week, right? So if you want, you could package Mike Evans and a Dalvin Cook or Mike Evans and a Zach Moss for a legit running back one. But if no one wants to trade good market value for Mike Evans, I think you can stay tight. I think you're fine. Watch back this video for some running back people you could pick up because there's going to be people available. Couldn't even get someone to do Stevenson for Mike Evans. Really? Yeah. It's certainly a league by league basis. It's kind of weird. What's up, Garner? How you doing? You have a claim for Ford. So yeah, there's people to pick up. Like I said, Ford, I like Gus Edwards. I like, go back and watch the video, go read the article on flurrysports.org. Hunter's got a couple good ones in there as well. But yeah, there's running backs available. You could even put in a sneaky addition for Kareem Hunt. Like I said, like Kareem Hunt's going to get signed in a couple weeks. I don't think it's going to be this week, but like week 5, week 6, when teams enter their bye week, I think Kareem Hunt's going to sign somewhere. And I don't love the matchup for Jerome Ford next week. To be completely honest, I probably am not starting him over the 3 running backs on your team. So I don't think you need to break your back and spend all your money for Jerome Ford. The Joker. 16-team league, Justin Fields, Raheem Mostert, Jamar Chase, Calvin Ridley, Hunter Henry, Brandon Ayuk, Tyler Bass, Ravens defense bench, Algier Madison. Oh, yeah, you had a question earlier. Let me scroll up. Oh, who to drop for Jerome Ford. So your running backs are... Oh, it's a 16-team league. Boy. What I would personally do, and it's my strategy all the time, I don't value kickers very highly. I think you can stream kickers more effectively than just starting the big ones. So I'm probably dropping Tyler Bass for him, and then it gives you a couple of extra days to figure out what you're going to do. Like maybe there's an injury that pops up, maybe something happens. So I would probably do that if I were you. Otherwise, I think you can drop Chig, and I think you can drop Jacoby Myers. I think it's fine. I think Myers is going to be a consistent, steady producer, but he's hurt right now, and he's never going to be a player that you have to start, especially over Jamar Chase, Calvin Ridley, Brandon Ayuk, and others, So I think that's what I'm doing. Wait, you have Justin Herbert? You have Justin Herbert and Justin Fields. You're not picking up Kirk Cousins. Don't do that to yourself. Trade one of the two if you don't like one of the two, and then drop Chig for Jerome Ford. Congratulations. There you go. That's the answer. That's the answer we need. And I understand you have to have a kicker, but you drop the kicker as a flex spot essentially to give yourself some mobility, and then you pick up a kicker prior to the game. That's what I do in every league. That's why I win a lot of trophies. Matt said, and then my actual team is set, but somehow 0-2. Boy, I lost this past week in multiple leagues, being the second highest score in the fucking league. So I feel you. It's been a weird start to the fantasy season with injuries and then studs just not showing up to play. I mean, leading rusher from a year ago had negative rushing yards last week. So it's wild. It's wild. Did we figure out wide receivers? Did we talk through all the wide receivers? I feel like I didn't. Romeo Doubs is still available in 35%. You don't need to go do that, but I think he is the most talented wide receiver the Packers have, including Christian Watkins. Tutu Atwell is out there. Tutu Atwell has been great. Puka is getting all of the praise and headlines. Tutu Atwell owned in 32% of ESPN leagues. And quietly, he has 17 targets, 13 receptions, nearly 200 total yards. He has a carry for 5 yards last week. He's been great. And you can easily see a scenario where Cooper Kupp comes back, takes his role from Puka, and then Tutu Atwell continues his same role. Like, that is for sure an option that happens. I think Puka Nacua is too good to keep off the field. I'm not saying he's Cooper Kupp or anything like that. I'm not going to exaggerate how good or not he is, but I think he is capable of playing other roles. So I'm not of the mind of Puka will not be usable. But regardless, I think Tutu Atwell's a player who is showing up at the current moment. So owned in 31.7% of leagues. He should be owned in more than that for sure. If you need a stash, if you can put suspended players on your IR slot, there's leagues like that. Give Jameson Williams a look. Owned in 17% of leagues. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks like a turf toe injury. I think he's going to play through it, but could certainly turn worse. And all of a sudden, Jameson Williams in a few weeks is the wide receiver 1 in Detroit. It's certainly a possibility. So don't burn a roster spot if you can't put him, in IR or something, but he's someone to look at. Robert Woods is owned in less than 7% of fantasy leagues. 19 targets, 12 receptions, 100 and looks like 31 yards if my math is correct. He's been great. Opposite of Nico Collins, and he's going to see just as many targets against Jacksonville this week. So, an uninteresting, unexciting wide receiver 3 or 4 option for you in Robert Woods. Josh Reynolds, obviously, and Amon-Ra St. Brown exited the game. I think he's going to play through it, like I said. But he also has 13 targets, 146 yards through 2 games in Detroit. So check him out. Tank Dell, rookie, stud. Talked about him a ton during the NFL draft process if you were with us. Week 1, they eased him in. Going into last week's game, they said we're going to get him the ball much more. That resulted in 10 targets, 7 receptions, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Do I expect him to score a lot of touchdowns? No. He also returns punts if you have return yards in your league. I like him. I think Tutu Atwell's good too. Tank Dell, I think he's a stud. I think he's really good. PPR leagues, he's going to be much more valuable. I think he is not necessarily a high yardage guy, but he could be a high volume guy. So check him out. Devontae Parker, pretty good debut. 6 receptions, 57 yards. I don't think it's a fluke. And then Matt Collins, 16-team league. If you're desperate, Matt Collins, 3 catches, 60 yards last week. I think he is kind of legit. I think his role is relatively safe. Back to the chat here. Garner, any words on Akers? What's his next move? I could see him going to Minnesota. I think Minnesota wants to give Madison a big workload this week and try to have him have a really good game, given the racist DMs and shit that happened to him last week. Obviously fumbling on national TV, possibly losing the game. Tough look. So I think they want him to have a big game, but the Kevin O'Connell connection with the Rams, obviously he was there when Akers was drafted. I could see him going there. I could see Akers going to Indianapolis. Like, he's going to go someplace that wants to play him. Is he that good? I don't know. But I think a team will trade for him for very, very, very cheap. Like, talking maybe a 6th-round pick. And people are going to be like, oh my God, can you imagine? We could have got Cam Akers for a 6th-round pick. Then they'll watch him play and they'll be like, oh, okay. Matt, this is the team that's 0-2. Let's take a look at it, shall we? Quarterback Josh Allen also has Tua, Kyren Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Tyreek Hill, Diggs, Hunter Henry, Waddle, Puka on the bench. Yeah, you're set. You clearly have a good team. That blows that you're 0-2, but I think you should be okay. Smokey ass. Traded Bijan for Justin Jefferson, W or L? I think it depends on what you need. Obviously, with running backs dropping like flies, there's a higher value put on that position because of scarcity. But in a vacuum, I think it's good. I'd rather have Justin Jefferson, but as long as the rest of your running backs are fine, then I think that's good. But if you're really hurting at running back, obviously that's a tough look. That's a tough decision. Would you trade away CeeDee Lamb? Asks Shaka. Would you trade away CeeDee Lamb for Alvin Kamara and Kyren Williams? You have to be hurting at running back and good at wide receiver. I'm not a big Alvin Kamara guy. When he comes back, like I would set the over-under for touchdowns scored by Alvin Kamara at 2.5 this year. Like I don't think he's going to score touchdowns. He doesn't run forward. He's not a strong runner. And the Saints are going to be using a combination of Taysom Hill, Jamal Williams, and probably Jawan Johnson and Jimmy Graham in the red zone this entire year. Like, I don't think Alvin Kamara is going to score much. So I probably wouldn't do that trade. I would much rather go CeeDee Lamb for Kyren Williams and a wide receiver that could help you out or another position. I like going for Kyren Williams right now, though. He's a good player. Sure. Thoughts on picking up Jordan Addison? I mean, do it. I was hesitant on him the past couple of weeks because he is very clearly the wide receiver 3 on the Vikings. And there's a chance that changes. He's clearly the second most talented. He just wasn't getting the snaps because he's a rookie, still learning the playbook, getting comfortable. Without those 2 big plays for touchdowns, I don't want to necessarily just take touchdowns away from a player and be like, without touchdowns, they're useless. I'm going to kind of do that here. But without those 2 big plays that were essentially busted coverage, Jordan Addison hasn't been that great. So I think you can absolutely pick him up. The extended time off is what gives me optimism that Jordan Addison's going to be utilized more going forward over KJ Osborne. But yeah, I wouldn't be dropping anybody meaningful for him, and I wouldn't be starting him this week. I'm still 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns are great. I'm not head over heels ready to start him. It's not a Puka situation. Not everyone can beat Puka. Matt says, didn't start a couple, which is his fault going to the matchup, but this is a championship team. Yeah, you're good. You're a good team. You're answering other questions. Yeah, you're good. But yeah, that's a good team. You have a good team. Dropping Odell for Addison. Yeah, I don't hate that. I think Odell's ceiling is pretty well capped, right? And Addison could be great. He could be a 1,000-yard receiver opposite Justin Jefferson. So yeah, I don't mind that. Smokey, sorry to jump you there. 12-team PPR. What was your question before? Traded Bijan for Justin Jefferson. So his team is Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Drake London, Jahan Dotson, Josh Jacobs, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyren Williams, Roshan Johnson, Jalen Warren, and Jerome Ford. Holy shit. You're good. You're good. Burrow's probably not playing this week, but aside from that, I think you're good. So yeah, dub. Good trade. Matt, who do I start this week? Because obviously matchups don't matter with this. I will be doing my rankings tonight. We'll have our rankings show tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Central right here. So I invite you to come back. But my initial gut call would be in that 10-team league. I'm assuming you're asking for. Sorry for the silence for audio listeners. I feel like the starting lineup that you laid out is what I would do. I'm not putting Ramondre over any of those people. See what I think Waddle had a little bit of an injury, so see what happens there. If he ends up missing or looks like he's going to be limited, then I would put probably Zach Moss in there over Ramondre. Though it would be one of those two. It would be close. But yeah, that's what I would do. Burrow probably won't play. No, if Waddle doesn't play, start Ramondre. It's between Ramondre and Zach Moss. Who do the Patriots play this week? Patriots play the Jets, and the Colts play the Ravens. I mean, Ramondre is clearly the better player. It'd be between those two. We'll see where my rankings shake out tomorrow. My guts is saying Zach Moss, though. I think Zach Moss falls on the end zone for a touchdown. I don't know if I'm willing to bet that for Ramondre Stevenson. So, yeah, I think it's close. Do I trust them against Baltimore defense? Yeah. Baltimore defense, their defensive coordinator is a joke. Sure, but I think my trade was pretty solid. I apologize. He traded, not I, Nick Chubb and Jamar Chase for Christian McCaffrey and CeeDee Lamb. I mean, you're good. Congrats to you. Give yourself a self high five. Sucks what happened to Nick Chubb. I love Nick Chubb, but boy, your timing is impeccable. Very good job. Other wide receivers to pick up. I don't think there really is anybody. Again, super deep league. Maybe check out Michael Wilson, a rookie I was high on, and he's getting the snaps. I like him. But let's finish up with tight ends here. Let's see which tight ends are available in ESPN leagues. Sam Laporta, still owned in less than half of leagues. It's a crime. Go pick him up. Zach Ertz, owned in 47% of ESPN leagues. He has 18 targets and 12 receptions. Like, there isn't much you can ask for at the tight end position if you don't have a top tier guy other than usage. And Zach Ertz is has close to the highest usage rate among all tight ends right now. So pick him up. I think you can drop Gerald Everett, by the way. He's only useful if Donald Parham is out. So I just saw he's owned in 38% of leagues. I would much rather have Hunter Henry, who's owned in 34% of ESPN leagues. Hunter Henry, 11 receptions, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns combined in the 2 games. Plays the Jets this week, not the easiest matchup, but Hunter Henry is very clearly a big part of that Patriots offense under Bill O'Brien. We had a question about Chig Okonkwo earlier. I don't think he needs to be owned. Hayden Hurst now has 10 targets through 2 weeks, only 3 last night. Little concerning, but I think he's okay. Jake Ferguson has 11 targets now through 2 weeks. Super low yardage, so it's a wait and see thing, but I think he should be on your radar. Taysom Hill, man. I mean, primetime spot, it was the most obvious Taysom Hill spot of all time. But running 9 carries, 75 yards, if we get any indication that running back room for the Saints is not healthy against the Packers, I mean, people forget. This is the Taysom Hill revenge game. Once on the Packers, cut, immediately picked up by the Saints, and the rest is history. So Packers notably cannot defend the run. We shall see. But he could be one of those sneaky tight end plays this week. A tight end play who doesn't line up at tight end. Otherwise, I mean, pretty barren. Tight end position's kind of a wasteland. Troutman, I think, will be better than he showed last week, but I'm not playing him. Logan Thomas left the game injured, and I think that Washington tight end is going to be used. I think it's going to be a big part of that offense. He had 8 targets week 1. He got that touchdown last week to save the people who played him per my recommendation. So I thank him for that. But yeah, check the injury report with Washington this week and see what happens. Cole Turner wasn't the main benefactor when he went out, but he's the better receiver of the two backup tight ends in Washington. So I would watch him if Logan Thomas does not play. Otherwise, I think that's the waiver wire this week. I think that's it. Back to the chat here. Got a couple questions. John asks, I hate these questions, not to throw you under the bus. It's just so, it's a one-of-one situation every single time. Who can I get trading away Puka Nacua? I need a quarterback and a running back. Are you looking to trade for two players? I'm going to assume not necessarily. But yeah, it's a case-by-case basis. Situations are situational, but I think you can trade him. Boy, his hype's really high. You might be able to trade him for wide receiver 2 value. Probably not, but I think there's going to be people who buy into the hype enough where you could get that. So if you're looking at quarterbacks, what I would be super interested in, I'm not sure if you can do it or not. I wonder if you can get Justin Fields for him. People hate Justin Fields right now. And I know if I was a Fields owner, I wouldn't accept that trade. But, strong chance Justin Fields has been a big part in losing that fantasy owner 2 weeks so far. So I wouldn't mind trading Puka for Justin Fields. Again, I'm not sure if he's going to be amazing this week, but eventually he will be asked to run the football, and that'll be great. That would be fantastic. Otherwise, other quarterbacks you could get for Puka, I think you could probably get Kirk Cousins. I think you could probably get Geno. And I think both of those are fine. You needed a running back. Running backs you could get for Puka straight up. You might be able to get James Conner. You might be able to get, what did he do last week? Yeah, you might be able to get Rashad White. Obviously, big workload again last week, and he scored the touchdown, which saved the game. I think you could get him. You could probably get a Javonte Williams. So I would look at that. If you're looking to do a 2-for-1, maybe you get a respectable quarterback and a Brian Robinson. A respectable quarterback and Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams' hype is pretty high too. But yeah, that's what I would be looking at. I'd probably go 1-for-1. I wouldn't be trying to do a package deal here. Looking at the chat right now, I'm just trying to catch up on you guys. You guys are active. I appreciate it. Do you think it's smart to start Herbert? Chargers play the Vikings this week? I believe so. If so, yeah. I could pass for 250 on the Vikings. So yeah, I think you can start Justin Herbert. His numbers will get better, right? He just needs to score touchdowns, and he will. He will. I think you're fine there. Oh, Khalil Herbert. Jesus Christ. That has to be the answer, right? Khalil Herbert you're talking about. Did you have other messages before that? Apologies on that. Khalil Herbert, I'm probably not starting. Honest question. Do you think Roschon Johnson takes the job by week 5? Should he? Yeah. Oh, Justin Herbert? Yeah, start Justin Herbert. Roschon Johnson should. He's certainly the most talented running back. We said in the preseason, it's a matter of if, not when. But I've also said multiple times, this Bears coaching staff's the worst in the NFL. Luke Getsy, former Packer coach, obviously Packer insider and myself here. So I have a lot of insight, and I can say he's an idiot. They're doing the exact same thing as they did last year, where they asked Justin Fields to be a pocket quarterback. It doesn't work. Square peg, round hole. Looks terrible. And then they're going to eventually switch and let Justin Fields run. They're going to completely change the offensive scheme, and they're going to look better. At that point, when they change the offensive scheme, I would assume they go with Roschon Johnson. I could see Khalil Herbert being a trade candidate. I could see Deontay Foreman being a trade candidate, talking real life football, not fantasy football. But the current regime in Chicago didn't draft Khalil Herbert. They have no ties to Khalil Herbert. They have ties to Roschon Johnson. So if you're talking about one player who's the best in that backfield, it's Roschon Johnson. If you're talking about one player who has the loyalty from the front office, it's Roschon Johnson. So by week 5, I mean, it's going to be in that category. It's going to be in that area, week 5 through 7. The Bears are going to switch back to an offense that works. And I imagine Roschon Johnson will be a big benefactor. It'll be right around then. Garner, all I have left for quarterback is Danny Dimes. Tough. Boy, short week 2. Hopefully you can find someone better. But it's a primetime game. And I feel like Daniel Dimes usually for primetime games gets on runs a little bit. So hopefully he runs and helps you out that way. Matt is a Bears fan. Root for the Dolphins till the staff is gone. I get it, dude. When McCarthy was a Packers coach, I was a Bronco fan because I couldn't root for Mike McCarthy. And it's getting that way in Green Bay right now, too. I hate this front office. I hate this coaching staff, minus Rich Bisaccia. It's tough. I'm thinking about starting Rachaad White. Yeah, big workload. He should continue with that big workload. Flex with upside, RB2 with upside. I like Rachaad White. What about CeeDee Lamb for Alvin Kamara, Kyren Williams, and Drake London? I mean, I like it in a vacuum in terms of value-wise. You have to drop 2 players, right? So as long as you're not dropping 2 players that are good, then cool. But if you're dropping 2 players who are good, that gets factored in as well then. Do I like Stroud? Young looks like a bust. I like Stroud. I think he's in the perfect situation in that Shanahan-like offensive scheme. And I think the weapons around him are incredibly underrated. And he's behind an offensive line that was already built. Like, he went to the perfect situation. Do I think CJ Stroud's an elite talent? No. But the more experience he gets, the game's going to slow down. All he has to do is throw to the open guy. That's the Shanahan system. Make the right decision, throw to the open guy. And I think Stroud's going to be given every opportunity to do that. So I kind of like him. Could break that Ohio State quarterback curse. Rodgers out. Richardson, don't know how to slide. Yeah, no shit. Any word on Richardson's status this week? I mean, in concussion protocols, so we know how that goes. I imagine he's not going to play. But if he doesn't play, like, I love Gardner Minshew. I think Gardner Minshew is a great quarterback. So if you want an insurance policy, I would play Gardner Minshew over Daniel Jones this week, probably. I don't know much about Poles, Matt. He seems fine, but boy, not sure. Thoughts on Breece Hall rest of season? I mean, after his comments last week, I think he's going to be given the ball more. And when the ball's in his hands, I feel like good things happen. So I like Breece Hall rest of season. He's probably an RB2. I don't think he's going to be an RB1 in that offense, given the workload he's probably going to see. But he's going to be much better than last week. Buy low candidate for sure. George asks, is it a good trade giving up Kenneth Walker and Chris Olave for Breece Hall and Jamar Chase, non-PPR? That's a tough one. I'm not an Olave guy, but he's looked good. Is it a good trade? I think it's a good trade. I would rather have Breece Hall and Jamar Chase. And that Bengals offense should get better. Nico Collins, Tank Dell are underrated. Robert Woods is underrated. Like, there's so many good players. Dalton Schultz is underrated. They have good players there. They also have John Mechie coming back off leukemia. He's a solid player. They have Xavier Hutchinson, another rookie. He's a good player. Texans got guys. They got guys. They're building it the right way. Antonio, should I drop Cam Akers or Devon Achane? I'd rather drop Achane right now. And it's going to be tough because I don't think Cam Akers is traded this week necessarily. But theoretically, the team who trades Cam Akers wants Cam Akers. So he would go to a situation where he plays. And with that Miami backfield, I don't want to trust anybody. Jerome Ford or Cam Akers this week for a waiver wire pickup, asks Willis. That's interesting that Cam Akers is a waiver wire pickup, but I think that's smart. Or are either worth using a high waiver priority? I don't think either are worth using up your top waiver priority. I mean, you know your league better than I do. We know Jerome Ford's going to be picked, right? There's a chance Cam Akers may not be picked up, and you might be able to just pick him up without using your priority, right? If that's the case, for sure, would rather choose him. But yeah, I'm not a Jerome Ford guy. I'm not going all in on him, especially against Tennessee, who will stop the run. So I think Cam Akers is more intriguing to me, but neither are must pickups right now. Angelo just lost Chubb. Current running back is Bijan, Brian Robinson, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell. Should I be looking to find a new running back or stick it out? I think you can stick it out. What did Brian Robinson do last week? Quickly, because I don't hate selling high on him if he had an okay game. I don't think he did, though. Oh, no, fuck it. 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. I would love to try and trade Brian Robinson and somebody else to upgrade from Brian Robinson, if you know what I mean. I think you're selling high, but otherwise, not a must trade. I think you can stick it out, and I think you're going to be fine. You had a good running back room, luckily. Garner in Dynasty, so pretty much nothing available. For quarterbacks, I'm assuming. Even Gardner Minshew's not available. I mean, I know in my Dynasty, the only starting quarterback available right now is Josh Dobbs. So I'm asking myself, would I start Josh Dobbs over Daniel Jones? I think the answer is no. So you're probably rolling with Daniel Jones this week. Not a fun spot to be. Swift still hasn't won that backfield against Gainwell. That's true. Sherb is in a 6-man league. These are tough. Every team's good. Starting lineup is Justin Herbert, Christian McCaffrey, Rashad White, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, TJ Hawkinson with Higgins, and Cowboys and Moody. Thoughts? It's so tough to grade a 6-man league because they all look good. I will say, I mean, the running back situation is always, it's getting weird now because of all the injuries. My gut is saying Rashad White isn't the best RB2. You could probably upgrade from that. But obviously with all of the injuries, like he is a top 20 guy for me this week, obviously. So I think you're good. We'll see what happens in Cincinnati. I can't remember who the backup is there. It's not. Who the hell's the backup for the Bengals? Bengals depth chart. I can't think of his name. Oh, Jake Browning. Not who I thought it was. I mean, we'll see. No Joe Burrow. You might have to switch. You might have to switch that flex spot. But that would be my biggest thing. Have fun at work, Garner. This is me at work, so I'm enjoying it. But yeah, definitely talk to us on Twitch all the time. We are growing a little fan base over there. I'm liking it. I like the people on Twitch. It's been fun. Matt says, I think Baltimore, Cleveland for Akers, unless Hunt goes back to Cleveland now. I mean, those are situations. Indy, like I said, the connection with O'Connell in Minnesota. It feels like it's a move Miami would make to bring him back to Florida, which I hate. Not saying I like that, but it feels like something they would do. Maybe Baltimore. I don't know. I know they love Gus Edwards, as do I. Derek, 10-team, half PPR, 2 flex. Thank you for prefacing that. I love that. Mark Andrews and Miles Sanders for Olave and Brees. You would have to be good at tight end. And you would have to have a need at wide receiver. I think that's a very even trade, to be completely honest. So I think it matters what your needs are and where the strengths of your team are. If you need a wide receiver and you're good at tight end, do the trade. If not, and you're just doing a trade for trade's sake, I think I'm staying put. Generally speaking, what running backs should I look to trade Brian Robinson up for? Could go Brian Robinson, DJ Moore, or Judy. I mean, if you threw in DJ Moore or Jerry Judy with Brian Robinson, you should be able to get a damn good running back. You should be able to get a Joe Mixon. I bet you could get Josh Jacobs after last week. Well, after the first 2 weeks, truthfully. You might be able to get Austin Eckler depending on where that owner sits, because it doesn't seem like Eckler is going to play this week. Obviously, that would hurt you too. But yeah, I don't think you have to trade. But if you're trading a wide receiver 2 or 3 with Brian Robinson, I'm going to the top. I'm going for running back 1. Boy, I feel like I'm missing questions. Unfortunately, if I miss something, shout it at me. I'm probably going to get off pretty soon, but as long as you keep commenting stuff, I should stay. Angelo, you think now without Chubb, Jordan Love has more value to start over Deshaun Watson? No. Deshaun Watson hasn't looked very good, but stats are deceiving because Jordan Love has also looked very not good. Not good at all. At least Deshaun Watson is an accurate quarterback. Like Jordan Love just doesn't have arm talent, which is an issue. Derek Sothers, tight end is Kelsey. Congrats to you. Yeah, do that trade then. What do I think about this trade from Luke Starr? PPR, James Conner, Kyren Williams, and Justin Fields for Mahomes and Ridley. Great trade. That's interesting. Great trade as in big names. Love it. From an analysis point of view, I love trading away James Conner for Mahomes and Ridley. I like it. Again, I hate prefacing this every time, but I feel like this is something people, like other analysts, don't necessarily think of. Like, you have to be good at running back. You just traded away 2 running backs and you're getting no running back in return. So as long as you are stacked at running back, which is a tough thing at this current moment, given all the injuries, then I like the trade. Otherwise, I don't necessarily want to be trading away 2 running backs that are start worthy right now. Paul asks, trade Garrett Wilson for Isaiah Pacheco. Oof, no. PPR have loaded depth. What other running back to target? Yeah, let's find you a different running back. Don't be chasing Pacheco. Garrett Wilson for Rashad White. You could do that. I'm not buying high on James Conner. I think he's fine going forward, but value-wise, now is not the time to trade for him. Garrett Wilson. I mean, you should be able to get Breece Hall for Garrett Wilson if you want. You might be able to get Ramondre Stevenson. Najee Harris is such a buy low. You could get more than Najee. You could get Najee and something else if you wanted to. Garrett Wilson for Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe. Obviously, his value goes up with the Montgomery injury. But yeah, there's a lot of top players that are underperforming right now. Like, there's a chance you can get Josh Jacobs for Garrett Wilson. It's a case-by-case basis. But Jacobs has been terrible. Wilson's at least been serviceable. I'm not chasing Pacheco. You can get somebody good. If you can get Eckler, should you do it? Yeah. Get Eckler if you can do it. It does feel like he's sitting out. Like, this whole collusion thing, this grievance against the NFLPA about running backs exaggerating injuries, faking injuries. The one player that I know for a fact would do it, I mean, 2 players. It seems like Jonathan Taylor's already doing it. But Austin Eckler is a guy who would absolutely do that. So that's what makes me a little bit afraid on him. But Eckler should be back week 4. The issue is week 5, he has a bye. But yeah, I'm still trading for Austin Eckler if you can. Don't trade market value though. You can get him for less, especially if you know the people you're in a league with, if you see them in person day by day. Like, you can talk about how the Chargers have a week 5 bye and there's no timeline for Austin Eckler coming back from injury. So, no timeline, does that mean he gets held out through his bye since it's such a early bye week? Is he out for the next 3 weeks? I think it's very possible. I don't think it will. I think he comes back week 4. But it's possible, and if you scare that owner into that thought, then you can get him for less, which is good. But yeah, I'm not paying Austin Eckler value for Austin Eckler right now, if that makes sense. Give Jonathan Taylor and Moss. I'm missing out on something here. I'm missing out on something. I'm not sure. Did somebody have Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss? Or is it giving over Eckler? Yeah, you could do that. I don't hate that. Jonathan Taylor is a guy I have been attempting to buy low on over the past 24 hours, but certainly don't have much trust in him. Not at all. You guys have been cool today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Please subscribe if you are not yet. Just know you can listen to the Fantasy Football by Committee podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. If you're looking to ask or answer more fantasy questions going forward, join the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group. Not only can you ask me and the rest of our hosts questions whenever, you'll get answers. You can ask questions to the rest of the community, get all the advice you need to win your matchup. But if you're also someone who wants to be an up-and-coming fantasy analyst, or if you just want to talk football, you can answer other people's questions in there as well, which is great. That's the best part. That's how I, got my following on Twitter and stuff. I just started answering people randomly on Twitter. And since I was right, then I gained a following. And then I built a company, So definitely an opportunity for you to do that in there as well. You will not be punished for asking or answering questions that weren't asked to you, if you know what I mean. So Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group, go build that up. Also, if you haven't bought a league award for your fantasy league yet, go to trophysmack.com and use promo code Flurry, FLURRY. The best, most customizable fantasy awards on the market. So good that they struck a deal with Mark Cuban on Shark Tank, which is insane. Like that's an accomplishment not very many people have been able to say. But you can get fantasy football trophies, championship rings. You can get championship belts like you are a WWE fighter. Said that really weird, WWE. There you go. You can get champ chains. You can get wall art, like magnetic wall art that looks, super customizable, super cool stuff. But then since it's magnetic, you can just interchange them whenever you want. Super, super cool. All at trophysmack.com. Use promo code Flurry to support the show and get yourself a discount. If you buy a trophy and use promo code Flurry, you get a free championship ring with it, which is a $60 value. Go do that, please. Check out all of the content on flurrysports.org. Lots of stuff there. We just posted the waiver wire article. I have overreactions from Twitter from you guys for week 2. Those articles are always super fun to do. I have more articles coming out today. But yeah, any final questions before we get out of here? Interrupt me plugging my own stuff, please. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff on Flurry Sports and wherever you're watching this right now or listening. 7 p.m. tomorrow night, we have the ranking show where we go over my rankings and compare them to the rest of consensus. An hour after that, we have Lombardi Sweep, which is the Green Bay Packers podcast. Thursday, we have the Start Sit show right before lineups lock, obviously, for Thursday Night Football. So lots of content. Angelo, happy riding Ridley, Allen, DJ Moore as the 3 starting wide receivers. I mean, happy is a relative term with DJ Moore or any Chicago Bear, right? But I mean, as a wide receiver 3, you could do much worse than DJ Moore. So I think you're fine. I think you're good. But yeah, lots of stuff at Flurry Sports, lots more that I would love to do. Let me know if there's any specific shows or articles that you're interested in seeing, and we can probably do it. More than just me. It can be more than me. Trust me. I understand not wanting to listen to me all the time as well. So if you want shows like DFS shows, you want more fantasy football news shows, just talking through the news, let me know. I have an idea for another type of fantasy show that I can't really dive too deeper into, but it'd be more of a comedy fantasy show, partnering maybe with another account on Twitter that's gotten a lot bigger. Maybe just by that description, you may know what I'm talking about, but that's something I'm interested in. Also, let me know, by the way, if you're somehow still listening at the end of this, whether you're live or not, let me know if you would be interested in a daily fantasy football email newsletter that goes over all the biggest, fantasy football news in terms of injuries, in terms of market data. What I mean by that is most traded fantasy players, most picked up, most dropped, stuff like that. Maybe some comedy fantasy stuff in there as well, like some memes and stuff that that's going viral, or stuff that people need to see. A lot of stuff. But like, for example, looking on Yahoo right now, some of the fantasy data, the most added player today is a DST. So probably the most streamed DST of the week is the Kansas City Chiefs. The top 5 most picked up over the past, I don't think it's past 24 hours. I think it's just today. But we got the Chiefs, the Seahawks, Tony Jones, Pierre Strong, and Taysom Hill. Those are the most picked up players, most dropped players. The Giants defense, the Cardinals defense, Aaron Rodgers, Detroit Lions defense, Greg Zuerlein. The most traded players today, Bryce Young is the most traded player. And I think this includes dynasty data as well. So that would make sense. Zach Wilson, number 2. I'm surprised people are trading for him. Desmond Ridder, Ryan Tannehill, and Chig Okonkwo. So when talking about dropping Chig, he is the 5th most traded player on Yahoo Fantasy today, which is interesting. Very interesting. But yeah, this is the kind of market data I think you would be able to get in a daily fantasy football newsletter. Please let me know if that is something that interests you, because, we will do the research for you and deliver it to your email inbox if you are interested in that. Please let me know. But until then, again, 7 p.m. Central tomorrow night, we will be live with the ranking show. Myself, Luke, and Trevor chopping it up. It'll be a good time. Subscribe, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.